welcome to the Earth Feels podcast.
I'm Rose.
And I'm Christine.
Welcome to Earth Feels, the podcast for people feeling overwhelmed by the endlessly gloomy climate news.
Where every week we have soul-based conversations about climate change and explore the idea that climate change may be happening for us as much as it is happening to us.
If you are ready to shift your focus and secure the future for our kids and our grandkids, then this is the podcast for you.
And yes, we do know how to spell.
This week's question is it possible to respond to the climate emergency with love instead of fear? This is a question that is close to my heart. It's something that I've thought about and I will share struggled with for the 10 years that I've been a climate activist. That climate change has kind of been front and center of what I do, what I think about. And wow, there sure is a lot of incentive, a lot of reasons to get angry and upset and fearful about what's going on in the climate change front. And I guess for me, it's important that we acknowledge all of those emotions, the anger, the fear, the frustration, but that we don't get stuck in them and that we can move through them into a place where we can actually say, like Stephen Colbert said in that interview with Anderson Cooper, are the punishments of the gods not also gifts?
Yeah, I think he said something about it, the gift that it is to exist. And existence comes with suffering.
Yeah, and in fact, there's a Marcus Aurelius quote that I quote in my book and I have in front of me. When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to feel, to love. And is that possible in a climate emergency? I'm asking you, Rose.
Yeah, I think, well, in recent years, I've moved from a world where fear was omnipresent and maybe omnipotent to a world where I'm looking to live and love more and more every day. So studying Eckhart Tolle, where he basically says in A New Earth, everything comes down to two emotions. It's either love or fear. And so the anger or the when you meet someone who is toxic, they're reacting out of fear, and knowing that, even though I'm still on manual, which I do this kind of like like I'm driving a stick shift, it helps me to understand that people's reactions when they bark at you or when they come at you in a negative manner, it helps me to be more compassionate, that they're operating from fear. And again, as we talked in our last podcast about setting the example, if you can remain calm and talk to that person or address that situation from a place of love, it changes the energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you become a spiritual warrior, in fact. Although I have to say, I still posted on my Facebook wall this past week because David Koch, the multi-billionaire industrialist, U.S. industrialist who's funded a lot of climate denial and right-wing politics in the U.S., I did post a cartoon that has him being greeted by the devil saying, "Well, Mr. Koch, I assure you that any increase in temperature you may be experiencing is totally fine and all the natural warming cycle. Don't be alarmed. Welcome to hell." Okay.
Yeah.
So So perhaps not the most loving response today, but I'm just admitting that I still have a ways to go, and I didn't celebrate his death, but I wasn't overly saddened to hear that, and I enjoyed that cartoon. But that's a bit of a digression. But so I just want to say, I'm not an angel. Rose may have her wings already, but I don't.
Ah, I do not. I don't think you'd be friends with me if I had my wings.
that you're probably right. So it's an ongoing process. I feel like life, whether it's climate change related or not, is a series of choices, as you said, between love and fear in our own families, in our interactions at work, and just in our communities in general. And I guess I didn't realize how much my system was run by fear
Mm.
until I had this experience. I was actually in an airplane, there you go, on the way to Australia years ago, so 20, 30 years ago. And we had been in the air for 20 hours or whatever. We were getting close to landing in Sydney, and so people were lining up to sort of freshen up and get ready to land. And I remember for the first time observing myself, because people were taking a long time in the bathrooms, because they're washing their, I don't know what they were doing, but they were taking a long time. When I was in the bathroom, I was just like hurrying through because I knew people were waiting, and I went, whoa, okay, whoa, why I can't even take up this space. That's what I noticed. Like, it was not okay for me to attend to my needs. There was this fear that I was inconveniencing other people, and it just wasn't okay for me to look after myself. It took me years to work through that fear based programming, which most of us, I would say, in Western culture, unless you had a pretty unusual upbringing, that's how we're programmed. And why
Well,
do
it's
you?
how I think it's how we were controlled. I mean, I think that if you look at religion, which I was born and raised Catholic, and people make jokes about Catholic guilt, which is how how the church and hence your parents taught you not to do things, was out of guilt, and guilt is a reflection of fear, fear that fear that you're going to go to hell,
Of
fear that
course.
and so that keeps you in line here on this planet, because because you're you may be going to hell later on, but especially with what's going on with climate right now, I think there's so much fear being put out there, that it keeps us frozen. I think the fear-based information that's coming out is coming from both sides, but I mean, there's a lot of fear in general. The media feeds us with fear. I think that's kind of to keep you in the loop of what's happening next, what's going on today, what's what happened in this hour. It keeps us engaged. But there is a lot of fear around climate. There's we need to recognize that, but we can't respond if we're in fear. Fear to me is paralysis inducing.
Exactly. You're exactly right. It is what fear does is shut down our limbic brain, and our
Hmm.
reptilian brain steps in, and that is not where good decision making comes from. That
Mm.
is
That
fear-based.
fight or flight response, yeah, or
Fight, flight, or freeze. And a lot of us,
mm,
that's, my book is called Unfreeze Yourself. So that a lot of us are frozen by this fear. And our daughter just brought over a movie called The Croods. Have you ever?
no.
Okay. Well, I hadn't either, but bless her, our 29-year-old daughter is educating us in animated movies. But I was thinking about having this conversation with you while I was watching it, and thinking about climate change and the challenge that it is. And we've sort of asked in this podcast, is climate change happening for us as much as it is happening to us? And now The Croods is a story of a Stone Age family that is paralyzed by fear. Especially the father keeps everybody in the cave and safe. And that's where they're safe,
Mm-hmm.
in the cave. Because if they
Mm-hmm.
go out, there's danger.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And when you think about our ancestors, very physical dangers in very real ways we were faced with. And it's a fun movie. I recommend it. And what happens is there's a daughter who's rebellious, rebellious teenage daughter who likes to push the limits and wants to go out of the cave when she shouldn't. And she meets up with the cavemen are, I believe, are supposed to be Neanderthals, and this clearly is a Homo sapien boy, and who has them,
And other. Yeah.
yes, and has them push their limits. That and sort of events that happen, and it's about following the light, actually, and because he has fire, they didn't have fire, and
Mm-hmm.
so I thought our systems are so fear-based, and there's a reason for it. It was survival.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we had to react when there was a tiger out there or a bear, and we didn't have the tools to protect us. We didn't have what we have now. And this, I believe, is climate change and the sixth mass extinction that we're facing because of what humans are doing to the planet, is an opportunity to deliberately choose to act out of love and not out of fear, to act
Mm.
against the way our systems and our civilizations have run, and that it is an evolutionary moment. And so on an individual level, and last week we talked about individual actions that we can take, and for me the primary or the most important thing one can do in this discussion and in one's life in general is to orientate oneself to act out of love rather than fear, because that will change everything.
Yeah, well, fear is not a sustainable motivator. It may keep you safe, but it doesn't motivate you, whether it's in your health or politics or in the short run. Fear is very powerful. It gets your attention, and like you said, it activates the amygdala. It keeps us in survival. But in the long run, it's too scary to think about something that's really bad, and so we don't. So we just check out.
And it's
But if
exhausting.
we're Oh, emotionally exhausting. Yeah, definitely emotionally exhausting. Um, something happens when on an individual level when we start thinking about things from love. Love is much more powerful in the long run, right? It is a sustainable motivator. We can address the challenges that our loved ones will face in the future. That's where love really comes into it. It's our love for our kids, our love for our grandkids that can motivate us to make the changes that will be hard right now. Does
And
that make
love
sense?
for nature.
Oh, love for nature, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's happening in the Amazon right now, with the Amazon being on fire, Indonesia being on fire, there's fires in Spain and France, wildfires, there's wildfires in Siberia. Like, we've talked about this can break your heart and close you down, or it can break you open.
Exactly.
So that's our
Exactly.
choice. Are we going to be broken down, shut down, or are we going to be broken open?
Yeah. So I guess if you look at your actions as if it feels good, then it's sustainable. If it's scary and fear-based, then it's not sustainable. So that kind of goes back to what we were discussing in our podcast last week. about find the things that you feel comfortable making those changes, that feel good to you to make those changes. Then you'll stick with them. If you're making the changes only because it's somebody, whether it's the media or an environmentalist who lives next door or us, making you feel guilty about it, that's not going to be sustainable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what you said. I guess I just want to clarify when you talk about what makes you feel good. So it's not what makes you feel good in a superficial way, because of alcohol can do that, whatever addictions one has. That's why people get addicted, is because they feel temporarily good. So or temporarily less bad, maybe. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
Is what I do in my wellness practice. I see people who have just become overwhelmed by their things that have happened to them in their life. And so they need a supporting hand to sort out what does bring me joy.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we're too stressed out and too burnt out to really sort that out for ourselves. And so that's when some of the sanity tips that we've been talking about so far, like taking 5 minutes every day to just sit quietly and meditate, that can put you in touch with, again, what really feeds your soul, what brings you joy. Taking time out in nature, all of those things, where you can see there's a theme here, folks. And and it really is, yes, it's about, I don't even want to say saving the earth, because actually the earth will be fine. She will recover. She's been around for a long time. But it's about saving ourselves, humanity, but doing
Exactly.
it in a way, again, that isn't based out of fear. And this is something that I learned from Citizens Climate Lobby way back in 2009, 2010, when they're training, when you meet with politicians who disagree with you, you have to be prepared to build a bridge between them, to recognize their humanity, to thank them for something they have done, something in their political record. You have to do your research and acknowledge and gratitude for something positive environmentally that they have done.
Mm-hmm.
Environmentally, if you can't find anything, then you have to choose something else. But it really is that idea based in Gandhian ethics and Martin Luther King's, and going even further back then to the New Testament, and Jesus telling us, love our enemies, bless those who persecute you. That really is, apparently Jesus was onto something.
Maybe why he's had a long play.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do
So
we?
let's talk about a little good news for this week. There was a report that came out earlier, I think it was like the 20th of August, and it talked about California now has more clean energy jobs than fossil fuel jobs.
Wow, that is so exciting.
5 times more
Wow.
clean energy jobs than fossil fuel jobs. So the idea that I think there's been a lot of fear about what happens when we move away from fossil fuels. What happens to all those jobs? Well, here's a point in fact. If we look at it from love, we see that we're moving towards a new paradigm. We're moving towards creating a space, or creating a relationship with Mother Earth that is more in alignment with the resources that she gives us, that don't destroy her. And we're creating new jobs. There's the positivity of it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, there's lots of good news out there. You just have to be kind of what you focus on expands, right?
So our action tip.
Look for the good news. Just this week, try to focus on finding one good news story a day around climate. They're there.
Love that. And share it on our Facebook page if you want, the Earth Feels Facebook page.
That'd be great. We're all in this together. So yeah, the more interaction we have, the better it is for all of us.
And our sanity tip, watch the Croods. There you go.
Yeah,
Or-
and see how it relates to today. So
Yeah, the Croods or another movie. There's that line in Shakespeare in Love.
Jeffrey Rush, who plays the director, gets asked how things are going to work out, and he shrugs and reassures them that it will, but says, I don't know, it's a mystery.
I haven't seen that movie in years. I'll have to go back and look at it. But there is that element of what you say is trust.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the spiritual warrior stuff, right? As you take one step forward, you kind of align yourself again and trust that the next step will appear as you take it.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily see the future. And I think maybe that's kind of how, if we extrapolate that to how is climate change happening for us and not to us, it's asking us to trust, to take the steps that we know we need to take. Just take them and watch and see what appears.
Lovely. And I think our sanity tip for today will maybe be to cultivate gratitude. So in a very simple way, at the end of the day or the beginning of the day, or when you have a pause in your schedule, just to maybe write down 5 things that you're grateful for today, right now. Because
Nice.
climate disaster is looming, but here we are in the middle of our lives, and let's not let it rob our joy. And gratitude is one way to cultivate joy.
Nice. I like that.
Thanks
Well,
for listening.
See you next week.
That's this week's episode of Earth Feels. Special thanks to singer-songwriter Kristen Hoffman for generously allowing us to use Song for the Ocean. Thanks for listening.
Don't forget, subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or Google Play so you don't miss an episode. Catch you next time.
Bye-bye.
Children of the earth, I'm calling out. There's a mission for you and for me. You see, your mother, she has been suffering. Then the truth is told beneath the sea. So raise your